Hate is a force that consumes the heart, blinds the mind, and destroys the soul. It starts as a spark but soon grows into an uncontrollable fire, burning everything in its path, including the person who ignites it. In a world already burdened with conflict, negativity, and division, overindulging in hate does not just harm others, it destroys the very essence of humanity within us. Today, we will explore the many disadvantages of overdoing hate and how it can lead to the downfall of individual societies and even civilizations. Hate is a slow poison that seeps into the deepest corners of the mind and heart, twisting perceptions, warping emotions, and distorting reality. It starts as a mere feeling of resentment or anger, but when nurtured excessively, it grows into an uncontrollable force that dictates thoughts, words, and action. A person consumed by hate loses the ability to think rationally. Every decision becomes driven by negativity rather than wisdom. Hate forces the mind to focus only on destruction rather than progress, on blame rather than responsibility. The heart, which is meant to experience love, compassion, and joy, becomes a barren wasteland where nothing but bitterness thrives. A person overwhelmed by hate finds it difficult to appreciate beauty, kindness, or the simple pleasures of life. They begin to see enemies where none exist, assuming the worst about people, situations, and even their own future. This internal corruption affects relationships, creating unnecessary conflicts and causing others to distance themselves. Moreover, hate triggers an endless cycle of negativity. The more a person feeds their hatred, the more it consumes them. It drains mental energy, making it difficult to focus on productive goals. Instead of spending time building something meaningful, they spend their days plotting revenge, dwelling on past wrongs, or justifying their anger. This mental obsession creates stress, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion, further deteriorating one's psychological well-being. As the mind becomes clouded with hatred, logic and reasoning take a backseat. Instead of looking for solutions, a hateful person looks for validation of their anger. They misinterpret neutral situations as personal attacks and react aggressively to minor inconveniences. Hate blinds a person to truth, making them incapable of self-reflection. They fail to see their own faults and refuse to acknowledge their mistakes, instead blaming others for their misery. The corruption of the heart is just as damaging. A heart filled with hate is incapable of genuine happiness. Even in moments of victory or success, a hateful person feels restless, unable to find peace. Their mind constantly replays old grudges, reopening wounds that should have healed long ago. This emotional burden grows heavier over time, leading to a cold and hardened heart that struggles to trust, forgive, or love. Hate, when overdone, does not just harm those it is directed at, it poisons the very person who holds on to it, turning them into a prisoner of their own negative emotions. Hate acts as a force that pushes people apart, creating deep divisions between individuals, families, communities, and even entire nations. It builds invisible walls that separate people based on grudges, prejudices, and misunderstandings. What starts as a personal dislike or resentment soon spreads into an overwhelming force that affects relationships, damages social connections, and isolates individuals from the very people they once held dear. When someone harbors excessive hate, they begin to view the world through distorted lens. Instead of seeing people as individuals with different perspectives and emotions, they categorize them as enemies or threats. This leads to the breakdown of communication, as hate-filled individuals refuse to listen, understand, or compromise. Over time, misunderstandings grow, and small disagreements turn into lifelong feuds. cutting people off from each other. Hate creates an us versus them mentality where people start to form groups that exclude and oppose others. Instead of working together for progress, communities split into factions, constantly battling over differences in opinions, beliefs, or past conflicts. History has shown us how societies have been torn apart because of hate, families breaking apart over disputes, friendships ending due to grudges, and entire nations engaging in wars fueled by deep-seated animosities. On a personal level, a person consumed by hate will find themselves increasingly alone. As their negativity grows, those around them start to distance themselves, unwilling to be part of such toxic energy. Friends begin to fade away, family members become estranged, and even casual acquaintances avoid interactions. Hate-driven individuals often fail to recognize that their isolation is a result of their own actions. Instead of reflecting on their behavior, they blame others, further feeding their resentment and deepening their solitude. Social isolation caused by hate has severe emotional and psychological consequences. Humans are naturally social beings, wired to seek connection, companionship, and a sense of belonging. But when someone allows hatred to dominate their thoughts and actions, they push away the very relationships that provide support and fulfillment. This isolation leads to loneliness, bitterness, and in many cases depression. The more they isolate themselves, the harder it becomes to rebuild bridges and reconnect with others. In extreme cases, this cycle of isolation leads to hostility towards society itself. People who feel abandoned due to their own hatred may lash out, believing that the world is against them. They begin to see themselves as victims rather than acknowledging their role in their own loneliness. This can manifest in self-destructive behaviors, aggressive actions, or even deeper resentment toward humanity as a whole. The divisions caused by excessive hate do not only affect individuals but also ripple outward, affecting families, workplaces, and entire communities. Hate breeds distrust, making collaboration impossible. People refuse to work together, to forgive, or to move forward, choosing instead to remain trapped in past conflicts. The result is a society filled with tension, where progress is stalled, relationships are broken, and people live in constant hostility rather than harmony. Hate is not just an emotion directed outward. It is a force that turns inward, consuming the person who carries it. The more one indulges in hatred, the more it begins to corrode their mental, emotional, and even physical well-being. A person who constantly fuels their hate unknowingly sets themselves on a path of self-destruction, where every thought, decision, and action is influenced by negativity, anger, and resentment. One of the most immediate effects of excessive hate is the toll it takes on mental health. The mind of a person filled with hate becomes restless, constantly replaying past wrongs, imagined offenses, and grievances. Instead of finding peace, they dwell in a world of negativity, unable to let go of what has hurt them. This continuous cycle of anger and resentment leads to high levels of stress, anxiety, and even depression. Over time, this emotional burden becomes overwhelming, making it difficult to focus, make rational decisions, or enjoy life's simple pleasures. Hate also affects emotional well-being, turning a person into a prisoner of their own bitterness. When someone is consumed by hatred, they struggle to experience genuine joy, love, or gratitude. Even moments that should bring happiness are overshadowed by their inability to let go of past hurts. Their emotions become dominated by rage and frustration, leaving little room for positive connections with others. This emotional imbalance leads to impulsive actions, reckless words, and an overall negative approach to life. Beyond the emotional and mental damage, hate also has serious physical consequences. Studies have shown that prolonged anger and hatred increase the risk of several health issues, including high blood pressure, heart disease, and weakened immunity. When the body is constantly under stress due to negative emotions, it releases harmful hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, which over time damage the heart and other vital organs. Many people who harbor deep-seated hatred experience chronic headaches, muscle tension, digestive issues, and even sleep disorders, all of which contribute to a declining quality of life. Self-destruction through hate does not only manifest in health problems, it also damages one's personal and professional life. A person controlled by hate is often unable to maintain healthy relationships. Their inability to forgive or move on creates conflicts with family, friends, and colleagues. Their conversations become filled with negativity, pushing others away and leaving them isolated. In the workplace, a hateful attitude can lead to difficulties in teamwork, loss of opportunities, and even career setbacks. Instead of progressing, they find themselves stuck in a cycle of anger and frustration that prevents personal and professional growth. Furthermore, hatred influences behavior in ways that lead to regret. When someone is driven by hate, they are more likely to make impulsive decisions, whether it be through harmful words, rash actions, or even physical aggression. These moments of uncontrolled rage can lead to broken relationships, legal consequences, and irreversible mistakes. In the heat of hatred, people often say or do things they later wish they could take back, but by then, the damage is already done. Perhaps the greatest tragedy of hate-driven self-destruction is that it prevents a person from living a fulfilling and meaningful life. Instead of focusing on growth, improvement, and positive contributions, they remain trapped in their own negativity. Every day is spent fueling grudges, reliving past hurts, and seeking revenge, none of which bring real satisfaction or resolution. In the end, the person who chooses to live in hate suffers the most, as they sacrifice their peace, happiness, and potential for a life consumed by anger. Hate is like a heavy curtain that blocks the light of wisdom, understanding, and self-improvement. It clouds judgment, distorts perception, and prevents people from seeing things as they truly are. When someone is consumed by hatred, their ability to think logically and objectively is severely compromised. Instead of seeking truth, they only look for information that supports their anger, further strengthening their misguided beliefs. This blindness leads to ignorance, stagnation, and an inability to grow as a person. One of the most dangerous aspects of hate is that it creates a filter through which people interpret the world. A person filled with hate only sees what they want to see. Any evidence that contradicts their feelings is ignored, dismissed, or twisted to fit their narrative. This leads to a biased and narrow-minded way of thinking. They refuse to consider alternative perspectives, shutting themselves off from new ideas, knowledge, and wisdom that could otherwise help them evolve. Hate also prevents self-reflection. A person who is blinded by hate rarely looks inward to examine their own flaws or mistakes. Instead, they project blame onto others, believing that the problem always lies outside of themselves. This lack of self-awareness keeps them stuck in a cycle of anger and frustration, never realizing that their own hatred is the real obstacle preventing them from finding peace and success. Growth requires humility, the willingness to acknowledge mistakes, learn from them, and strive to become better. But hate destroys that humility, replacing it with arrogance, stubbornness, and an unwillingness to change. Beyond personal development, hate also affects relationships and social interactions. A person consumed by hate struggles to listen to others, engage in meaningful conversations, or accept constructive criticism, they become defensive, always feeling attacked, and respond with hostility rather than open-mindedness. This damages relationships with family, friends, and colleagues, making it difficult to maintain healthy connections. Over time, people start avoiding them, recognizing that any discussion will lead to conflict rather than understanding. Hate also limits one's ability to learn from experiences. Every challenge in life presents an opportunity for growth, but when a person is blinded by hate, they fail to see the lessons hidden within hardships. Instead of gaining wisdom from adversity, they remain fixated on resentment, believing they are victims of injustice rather than students of life. This prevents them from developing resilience, patience, and emotional intelligence, qualities essential for true personal growth. Another way hate blocks growth is by feeding into destructive behaviors. When someone is overwhelmed by hatred, they often seek revenge, act impulsively, or engage in self-destructive habits. Their actions become fueled by anger rather than rational thought, leading to regrettable decisions that may harm not only themselves but also those around them. The inability to control emotions and make sound choices keeps them trapped in a negative cycle where they constantly sabotage their own progress. Hate also creates an illusion of superiority. A person who harbors hatred often sees themselves as morally or intellectually above others, dismissing different opinions as foolish or irrelevant. This false sense of superiority prevents them from learning and growing because they believe they already know everything they need to know. True wisdom, however, comes from the ability to listen, understand, and accept that there is always more to learn. But hate blinds people to this reality, making them resistant to new knowledge and experiences that could expand their perspective. In the grand scheme of life, those who allow hate to dominate their thoughts remain stagnant, never reaching their full potential. While others progress, improve, and adapt, the person blinded by hate remains stuck in the past, unable to move forward. They waste their energy on anger instead of using it to build something meaningful, missing countless opportunities for growth, success, and fulfillment. Hate, when left unchecked, has the power to destroy everything in its path: relationships, communities, and even entire civilizations. It is one of the most dangerous emotions because it pushes individuals beyond reason, leading them to act with aggression, cruelty, and vengeance. Hate blinds people to the consequences of their actions, making them believe that their anger is justified, no matter the harm it causes. When hate takes control, it creates an endless cycle of violence and destruction where retaliation breeds more retaliation and peace becomes nearly impossible. At the personal level, hate drives individuals to lash out at others, often in ways that are irrational and harmful. A person consumed by hate may engage in verbal abuse, physical altercations, or even criminal behavior, all in an attempt to satisfy their anger. Their emotions override logic, leading them to make impulsive decisions that they may later regret. But in the moment, hate gives them a false sense of power, an illusion that by hurting others, they are somehow winning or proving a point. The reality, however, is that these actions only deepen conflicts, create lasting wounds, and often lead to serious consequences such as broken relationships, legal trouble, or physical harm. In families and communities, hate spreads like wildfire, infecting people and turning once peaceful environments into battlegrounds. It leads to feuds that can last for generations, where neither side is willing to let go of past grievances. Small disagreements escalate into intense conflicts, and rather than working toward resolution, individuals and groups become obsessed with revenge. Hate causes people to dehumanize others, seeing them not as fellow human beings, but as enemies who deserve suffering. This mindset justifies acts of cruelty, making it easier to harm others without guilt or remorse. History has shown us that hate has fueled some of the worst atrocities in human civilization. Wars, genocides, and acts of terrorism have all been driven by deep-seated hatred, whether between races, religions, nations, or ideologies. When people allow hate to guide their decisions, they lose sight of morality and humanity, leading them to commit acts of violence on a massive scale. Entire societies have been torn apart because of hate, with millions of innocent lives lost due to the unwillingness to forgive, understand, or coexist peacefully. Hate is at the root of discrimination, oppression, and the destruction of cultures, creating divisions that take generations to heal. Even in everyday life, hate fuels destruction in more subtle ways. It can destroy careers, friendships, and opportunities. A person who acts out of hatred may sabotage their own success simply because they are too focused on harming someone else. They might lash out at a colleague, leading to job loss, or seek revenge in a relationship only to end up isolated. The destruction caused by hate is not always physical. Sometimes it is the slow decay of a person's reputation, trust, or inner peace. Beyond personal consequences, hate has a way of spreading beyond the individual, influencing others and inciting further violence. Hate speech, for example, has the power to stir anger in large groups, leading to riots, attacks, and even civil unrest. The words of one hateful person can ignite fury in many, pushing them toward aggression and destruction. Hate, when expressed openly and repeatedly, infects society like a disease, making people believe that cruelty is justified and that enemies must be eliminated rather than understood. The most dangerous thing about hate-fueled violence is that it is never-ending. When one person acts in hatred, the victim often responds with the same energy, creating a cycle that repeats endlessly. One act of revenge leads to another, and before long, entire communities are caught in a web of hostility. The damage caused by hate is difficult to repair because wounds left by violence, whether physical or emotional, do not heal easily. The more people act on hate, the more destruction they leave behind, affecting not just themselves but future generations as well. Hate is not just destructive to others. It is equally, if not more, destructive to the person who carries it. While many people believe that hating someone or something gives them power, control, or a sense of righteousness, the truth is that it strips them of their inner peace and happiness. Hate consumes the mind, disturbs emotions, and fills life with negativity, leaving no room for joy, contentment, or fulfillment. A person who carries too much hate is like someone drinking poison, expecting it to harm someone else, when in reality it slowly destroys them from within. One of the most immediate effects of hate is that it breeds constant mental unrest. A person filled with hate is rarely at ease because their thoughts are always centered on anger, resentment, and revenge. They replay past wrongs, dwell on grievances, and keep feeding their own negative emotions, preventing their mind from experiencing calmness. Instead of focusing on personal growth, success, or happiness, they waste their mental energy on thoughts of conflict, deepening their frustration. Even when life presents them with opportunities for joy, their obsession with hate prevents them from truly embracing them. Hate also drains emotional well-being, turning every moment of life into a struggle. When a person carries hatred, they are easily irritated, always on edge, and quick to react with anger or frustration. Small inconveniences feel like major offenses, and they constantly feel like they are in a battle against the world. Over time, this emotional exhaustion leads to bitterness, cynicism, and an inability to experience positive emotions such as love, gratitude, and compassion. Happiness becomes fleeting as their heart is too weighed down by the burden of hate to feel light and free. Moreover, hate disrupts relationships and social connections, further destroying a person's happiness. Humans are naturally wired for connection. We seek companionship, understanding, and emotional support from others. However, when someone harbors hate, they isolate themselves, either by pushing people away or by surrounding themselves with others who share their negativity. Meaningful relationships require kindness, forgiveness, and empathy. But hate erodes these qualities, replacing them with suspicion, hostility, and a constant need for conflict. As a result, friendships fall apart, family bonds weaken, and romantic relationships become toxic, leading to loneliness and emotional suffering. On a deeper level, hate prevents a person from appreciating life's beauty. The world is full of experiences that bring joy, nature, art, music, love, laughter, and human connection. But when someone is consumed by hate, their ability to notice and appreciate these things fades. They walk through life blind to its wonders because their mind is too preoccupied with negativity. Instead of seeing the good in people, they focus only on their faults. Instead of finding inspiration, they find reasons to complain. Instead of celebrating small victories, they fixate on past losses. Hate in this way steals the simple pleasures of life, making even the most beautiful moments feel dull and insignificant. Hate also leads to a restless soul, making inner peace impossible to achieve. A peaceful mind is one that is free from resentment, open to understanding, and capable of letting go. But when a person allows hate to dominate their thoughts, they remain trapped in a cycle of emotional suffering. Their nights are restless, their days are filled with tension, and no amount of external success can bring them true fulfillment. Inner peace requires forgiveness, not for the sake of others, but for one's own well-being. Yet, a person who overdoes hate finds it nearly impossible to release their grudges, keeping themselves imprisoned in their own suffering. On a physical level, hate has even been linked to serious health issues. Studies have shown that people who hold on to anger and resentment are at greater risk of developing high blood pressure, heart disease, weakened immunity, and chronic stress illnesses. The body responds to prolonged negative emotions by releasing stress hormones, which over time wear down the body's natural defenses. Many people who live with excessive hatred experience headaches, digestive problems, fatigue, and even insomnia. Clear signs that their emotional turmoil is manifesting as physical distress. Perhaps the greatest tragedy of hate is that it wastes the limited time we have in life. No one lives forever, and every day spent in hate is a day lost to negativity. Instead of using their energy to create, build, and experience joy, a person trapped in hate spends their life destroying, resenting, and suffering. The years pass, and eventually they may come to realize that the things they held on to so tightly, the grudges, the anger, the need for revenge, were never worth the happiness they sacrificed. But by then, much time has been lost, and rebuilding a life of peace and fulfillment becomes even more difficult. Heart is a fire that consumes everything in its path. The world around us, the people we love, and most importantly, ourselves. It blinds us to truth, poisons our relationships, fuels violence, and robs us of the very peace and happiness we seek. The more we feed it, the more it takes from us, leaving behind nothing but destruction and regret. But the good news is that hate is a choice. And just as it can be nurtured, it can also be abandoned. We have the power to rise above it, to choose understanding over resentment, forgiveness over vengeance, and love over hostility. True strength does not come from holding on to hate. It comes from letting it go. It is in choosing peace despite the chaos, in seeking wisdom despite the pain, and in striving to build rather than destroy. Life is too short to be wasted in anger. The world already has enough division, enough suffering, enough pain. Instead of adding to it, we can be the ones to break the cycle. By choosing to move forward with an open heart and a clear mind, we reclaim our inner peace, our happiness, and our purpose. In the end, the greatest victory is not in overpowering others through hate, but in conquering the hate within ourselves.